about football, and it's just because, as you may have heard me mention in the past, I'm not a huge spring football person. There's a lot of things that happen in spring football that are not going to happen for the future and are not going to mean a whole lot for the future. I mean, a good example is, like, for example, the center, right? We have Brockermeyer as our center, and then all of a sudden Brockermeyer enters the transfer portal, and Parker Brailsford looks to be the starting center. When Brailsford comes in, it was all but expected. Yeah, he's going to be the starting center. And then you hear, oh, Brockermeyer's doing awesome, awesome, awesome. And then all of a sudden, Brailsford's the guy. So, there's a lot of things like that end up happening during spring football. And so I try not to dive too deeply into that because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen. They're just now learning the new system. They're just now learning the new coaches. And I think that having too many overreactions to the spring are just unreasonable. As some things start to come out now, we've got a lot of recruiting that's happening. I'm not a huge football recruiting person just because of how many recruits there are. So I am not your person when it comes to super in-depth recruiting knowledge on the football side of things. I will say Alabama has been able to do a really good job. I think they currently hold like the number 3 recruiting class. They were able to get a big flip from Keon Russell, the quarterback from Duncanville, Texas, that was previously committed to SMU. From my understanding, he is the quarterback that they kind of set their sights on for next year's class and had kind of maybe taken a step back from Juju Lewis. So that is my understanding when we're talking about quarterback and where Alabama has looked at that position. Like I said, they were able to get the flip of the commitment from Keon Russell. So that is a huge, huge commitment. And I think that he will be able to fit what Kalen DeBoer wants to do really, really well. But I will say, if you're interested in recruiting knowledge, the guys in On3 do a really good job. There's quite a few different beat reporters that do a really, really good job when it comes to Alabama football recruiting. And like I said, I keep up with basketball recruiting a little bit more than football recruiting. I will say, for anybody that may have jumped the gun a little early and saw Will Riley visiting for basketball, I think that if Alabama had an open spot on the roster, he was a very high likelihood of somebody we could get for a reclass. But my understanding is he's still looking at potentially reclassing. And if he does reclass, then a team like Kentucky, is pretty high up on his list because Alabama obviously has the full roster of 13 scholarship guys. So he did visit Alabama. I do not expect that to go anywhere. Excuse me. I do not expect that we're going to be landing that commitment. I think he's a really good player. But I do think that Alabama, because he's looking to reclass, I do think the Alabama's roster is obviously full, and there's not going to be much we're going to be able to do for him. So, wish him the best, but I think he's probably going to be committing elsewhere. So, let's get into what we have heard about the football schedule, and I'm actually going to pop it up here on the screen. They released a graphic earlier this week. So, from what we know about the football schedule, we now have a few game times. However, there are quite a few game times that we are unaware of. So we don't know as many game times as we would hope, but we do have a pretty good idea. So for the opening matchup, we have a 6 p.m. under the lights in Bryant-Denny on the 31st against Western Kentucky, followed by on the 7th, another 6 p.m., so back-to-back night games to open it up in Bryant-Denny. Then we have a college noon kickoff on Fox at Wisconsin, Camp Randall. So Wisconsin, that's going to be an 11 a.m. kick, big noon kickoff for Fox. Then we have an off week, and then the next week will be the home game against Georgia, and that is going to be 6:30 on ABC. So that one obviously is in prime time. Then for the Vandy game, we know it's either 2:30 or 3:30. So we have a pretty good idea that it's going to be the mid-afternoon game. So that is when the Vandy game is going to be. That's going to be at Vanderbilt. Then the home game against South Carolina, we know it's going to be an 11 a.m. Against South Carolina. That's going to be at Bryant-Denny. They're not sure of the provider, whether it's going to be ABC or ESPN. But again, we have an idea. We have a good idea of the time. Then we have our 5 flex games. We have at Tennessee, home against Missouri, at LSU, at Oklahoma, and home against Auburn. All 5 of those games are going to either be 2:30 or 7 o'clock. For anybody that pays a lot of attention to the way Alabama games have gone in years past, that should surprise basically no one. Honestly, the fact that we have an 11 a.m. for a or actually we have two 11 a.m.s for cupcake, non-conference games is pretty surprising to me. We have the Wisconsin Big Noon kickoff, due to the Big Ten's commitment with Fox. That's not shocking at all, actually. The Big Noon kickoff makes complete sense with that. However, the 11 o'clock against South Carolina is a little surprising to me. Alabama very rarely has those early kickoffs for the bigger games or, for SEC games. Typically, we're having that 2:30 or 7 o'clock. So the 2:30 or 7 o'clock flex time for those 5 games isn't the best because you still don't have a full idea, but at least our suspicions are confirmed. Those are going to be in the prime time slots, and it's just going to be, whether they go all the way down to the, prime time at 7 p.m. or is it going to be just a 2:30, midweek game. This obviously is the first season that the ESPN contract is under, so you'll notice all of these games are on ESPN, ABC, with the exception of the Fox game against Wisconsin. And I guess even the Mercer game is going to be an SEC Network Plus, so that's going to be free with SEC Network, or I'm sure ESPN Plus will also have it. So again, all of these are going to be on ESPN subsidiaries, so it's not going to be CBS. So the 2:30 games, again, just as a heads up, those are going to be ESPN 2:30 games, not CBS 2:30 games, as this is the new ESPN contract. So, as I mentioned, that's the little bit of football news we have. Like I said, we have Keon Russell flipping his commitment from SMU. We have some other commitments that have come along. I'm sure they've had plenty of practice visitors. And people, taking official visits to Alabama. I've seen different things, with guys coming through. But as I mentioned, I am not going to be your basis of Alabama football recruiting news. Just want to be completely honest when it comes there.